everybody, and welcome to episode 7 of Realtors from the Trenches. My name is Nat Grillo, and this is our international episode because we're joined by our colleague Dave Eccles, who is in sunny Costa Rica. You can see the palm trees and foliage behind him. And of course, Mike Morelli is not as tropical, but he's in rainy Vancouver. So looks like the only one working right now is yours truly. And of course, we're all with Remax Premier. So today's topic, as a segue, is to do with just that geography and what we experienced as realtors, starting with COVID, which COVID had the effect of accelerating this whole idea of remote working. And the effect it had on real estate is that many of our clients decided that maybe they want to move away from the city. And we just wanted to talk about some of the implications of that. There's good and bad, moving farther out. Are you really saving money? What's involved? So that's what we're going to talk a little bit about today. Um, you guys want to chime in? Do you have some anecdotal experience from your clients who tried it?
Yeah, so I want to say, and I just had this conversation with an agent here out in Costa Rica, and just to get an understanding of what they're going through. Is it the same as what we're seeing? Are the interest rates affecting them? And it is much of the same as what we're seeing. During COVID, people getting interest rates that were really low, pulled money out of their equity out of their homes, bought cottages, and now they're retreating. So we're seeing a lot of this retreat, and this starting to see this buildup of inventory coming around, where people either one had no business in buying a cottage or a property in Costa Rica, or because the bugs, the maintenance, the upkeep, and so on and so forth, or two, with the interest rates being where they're at, just became unaffordable. So we're seeing this retreat even here out in Costa Rica.
Mike, what was your experience?
Well, I saw a lot of people, looking at places outside the GTA, and the price per square foot or what they can get, traveling a little bit out of the city was a lot more for their money. But I also was cautious with them to let them know that it's you have to look at how the relativity of the pricing, right? And where we were in a good real estate market and things are booming and expanding, but what's it gonna look like in 5 years from now? Are the prices going to continue to rise as much as they are outside the city as they are in the city? And what I've experienced, I've had a couple properties outside the GTA, and prices are depressed, right? And it's probably to Dave's point as well, like a lot of people bought that secondary property for a getaway, and now it's tough to afford two properties, so they're having to look at what options they have. And it's there's pluses and minuses. I think it also depends where you are in life, and if it fits that the mold for you. So
it's actually not a new dilemma that people have been faced with. I remember selling clients 20 years ago, and they were deciding, should we buy in High Park in Toronto and stretch our dollar to the max where we can't do anything else and just barely scrape it together to buy this property, in an urban neighborhood, or should we, move out to Guelph or Barrie or somewhere up north where it'd be much easier to afford? And certainly those people that decided to buy and stay in Toronto, it's really paid off well for them because the values skyrocketed, and many of them, their properties are worth $1 million more than they paid for them 15 years ago. So that equation worked out well. Also, if people do decide to move, to the outskirts, one of the things is it then is very difficult to move back if you change your mind. It's easy to go the other way, but if you've made the decision early on in your life to live in the outskirts, you'll pay your house off much quicker, and maybe you'll have a good quality of life. But will you have that same big real estate nest egg when you're 60? If you for compared to the people who moved to made the decision to go to High Park, and so I had some clients who bought very early on in High Park, as an example. About 10 years later, they made a large amount of money tax free. They sold it and they moved up to Cochrane, way up north, and they bought a cottage and a little house in town. So it's easy to go the other way. It's not so easy to come back. So those are some of the things to consider. And also this idea of remote working, a lot of the companies are asking the people to come back now. So, whereas people were working 5 days a week remotely, now they can only work 2 days a week remotely, and they still have to commute 3 of those days. So, it's an interesting choice that people have to make.
Yeah, I'm seeing that as well. Not there are even so I, as you know, moved out of you know Woodbridge and moved to Carlisle to get a little more quiet and
Yep.
yeah, and we saw a lot of that happening in my neighborhood, and now I'm seeing people leaving Carlisle because they just can't manage that commute. I mean, it's not it's not crazy far, but it's far enough to make somebody's head spin. Especially if you get caught up in the traffic. And it's yeah, we're starting to see people that we were getting to know, and they were here for a couple of years, and they're saying no, gotta go. Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, and I'm working with two sets of young couples right now. One couple has two young children, and they want to stay right downtown in the city. And they're in a small little 650 square foot condo, and the kids are very young, but they make use of the urban environment. They go out to the parks nearby. They've got the facilities in the building, and so they're raising their kids in a very urban environment. And they're making the decision, no, they want to stay really close to the city. They don't use their car. They both walk to work. And so there's pluses and minuses to consider.
Mike, you've recently sold some cottage property, land, that sort of stuff. Um, Before COVID, I was shopping around, playing around with the idea to buy in areas like Bancroft and Apsley. And I was finding that if you were looking at stuff like 100 acres, you could find, between $1,000 to $2,000 an acre if you were buying in the 100 acre. And then, of course, COVID hit and it went berserk. It went up to $5,000-6,000 an acre, and it became untouchable. Are you finding that it's retreating back to that $1,000 and $2,000 an acre, or is it three
Yeah,
now?
I think it also depends what, the purpose, where it is, purpose of the land, right? And where it is in the official plan, what use you can use it for. I'm definitely seeing that it is retreating back. It's been a tougher sells, but it all depends on what the use of the land is for, is what I'm finding. If especially with the government's mandating that we need more housing,
Mm-hmm.
if it's closer to being zoned
Develop.
for higher density, even in outside the GTA, people are still definitely have the appetite for it, right? So, I think it depends on what the use is. If it's farmland, you know, um, it's definitely at a bargain price from COVID for sure. If it's got some higher and best use, I think the prices are still fairly decent.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
I think
Yeah.
also that um, I'm starting to understand that we have a very diverse population and we have a lot of people in the GTA and they don't all think the same way. So it's hard to make big sweeping judgments like everybody's moving away from the city or everybody's moving to the city. Lots of different people are trying lots of different things, and there seems to be a demand for many different lifestyles, and there's also a willingness to change your mind. So some people make the move, and like you were saying, Dave, after a couple of years, they do the commute, and they don't want to take 3 hours out of their day in their car, and so they change their minds. And I guess it's one of the beauties of our real estate system is, it's fairly transparent and it's fairly well organized and you can easily move and sell your house and buy a new house. So that's a good thing. But I'm being very careful now to make sure I'm not making big sweeping judgments because um, demand and supply are coming at us from all directions. Is what I'm finding.
Yeah. Yeah, next couple of months will be really interesting, especially as we get closer to possible rate decrease. I'll be interesting to see how that all pans out.
Yeah, yeah. And it'll be interesting to see if employers really stick to their guns and are going to push people to come back to offices or whether the new normal is, remote work 2, 3 days a week. What's the impact on the commercial real estate market in Toronto? How are you know, the economies that were set up for a whole bunch of people coming into the city during the day, spending money, and then going home at night. And if that starts to change, how does that change the lifestyle, the economy of the people in the city? So yeah, it's going to be the next couple of years are going to be really interesting to see how this all pans out.
And the last time we spoke, we talked about the opportunities for buyers between now and the possible rate decrease, and I
Right.
thought perhaps April, and then between that time from our last meeting, I'm starting to see bidding wars again. I'm starting to see the market, get a little bit hot, and we're starting to see competition, and I think it's exactly that this race to get in before that decrease, and then prices potentially, you know, skyrocket or move up, at least.
Yeah, is that what you're seeing, Mike? Are you
Yeah,
seeing?
I'm seeing a lot more activity, a lot more sold conditionals or solds in the last week or so. So I think people are starting to come off the fence with that hope, either uh, because they're afraid that once rates drop, that the market will start to pick up even more, or that they're just comfortable in this interest rate environment to make a purchase that they've been delaying, thinking that the sky is going to fall down, and it really hasn't. So um, I agree. I think things are going to start to get really busy, and people have to start thinking about it now.
Yeah, the one thing I disagree with you, Dave, and the nice thing about our format is that we're allowed to disagree with each other because we're all friends. I don't see a big jump in prices. I see more volume selling. I see, more inventory. I just don't think um, with the current, even if the interest rates come down a little bit, I just don't see the affordability with those high prices. I'm not anticipating a big jump in prices like we saw, the last couple of years in January. There were
Right.
significant jumps in price. I'm not anticipating that. I don't think we're going to go down in price, but I think if we go up, it'll be very modest. My feeling.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. Don't get me wrong. I don't think it's going to go berserk like it did in COVID, but I do anticipate, these multiple offers push people into uncomfortable situations. This house sells for 1.2, next house is going to be 1.240, next one's going to be 1.280, and we go right back into that, nonsense of buying without thinking. And Yeah, I certainly see as the interest rates decrease, the prices will increase. How quickly, it will yet to be determined for sure.
Yeah. Well, I think that's all the time we have today, guys. So enjoy the warm weather, Dave. Enjoy the wet weather, Mike. And I'll
Yeah.
enjoy the freezing weather at -8 here in Toronto today. And we'll see you next week. Thanks, everybody.
Take care.